The school hallway was alive with the sound of lockers slamming, sneakers squeaking against the polished floor, and chatter that rose and fell like waves. It was a regular afternoon at Lincoln High, and sunlight poured in from the tall windows, painting streaks of light across the long row of lockers. For most kids, this was just another day of school. But for Lena, every step through those crowded halls felt like walking a tightrope, careful, tense, eyes lowered, always hoping not to be noticed. Lena was the quiet one, the kind of girl who always sat in the back of the class, her long dark hair falling like a curtain across her face. She spoke softly when called on and avoided attention as much as she could. Her classmates barely knew her voice. But bullies? They always seemed to notice people like Lena. That day, it began with laughter, the kind that echoed too loudly, sharp and cruel. A group of boys swaggered down the hall in their Letterman jackets, the so-called kings of the school. Their leader, a tall, broad-shouldered boy named Mason, locked his eyes on Lena as she hugged her books to her chest and hurried past. A smirk spread across his face. "Hey, ghost girl," he called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. Heads turned. Phones were pulled out. Lena's heart sank, but she kept walking. If she ignored them, maybe they'd get bored. But Mason wasn't going to let her go so easily. He stepped in front of her, blocking her path, his shadow falling across her. His friends circled around like vultures, grinning, waiting for a show. "You always hide in the shadows, don't you?" Mason sneered. Then, without warning, his hand shot out and grabbed Lena's collar, yanking her forward. Her books tumbled from her arms and hit the floor with a loud thud. The crowd gasped, some laughing nervously, others pulling out their phones to record. Lena froze. Her pulse hammered in her ears. The world narrowed down to Mason's smirk and the cruel laughter surrounding her. For a split second, she felt like the helpless, invisible girl she'd always been. But then, deep inside, something shifted. Her father's words came back to her. She could almost hear his steady voice in her mind, "Strength isn't about shouting louder. It's about knowing you don't have to be afraid." For over a year, Lena's father had been quietly training her in Judo at a local community gym. He had seen how his daughter shrank from the world, and he wanted her to understand something important, that she wasn't weak. Each throw, each hold, each wrist lock he taught her wasn't just a technique, it was a reminder that she had control over her own body, her own space, her own worth. And now, as Mason's grip tightened on her collar, Lena's body moved almost on its own. Her hand shot up, seizing his wrist in a firm judo grip. She twisted sharply, pulling his arm down and across in a motion she had practiced hundreds of times. Mason's eyes went wide as pain exploded up his arm. He cried out, stumbling to one knee, his cocky grin wiped clean. The crowd gasped. Before anyone could react, another boy lunged forward, grabbing at Lena's shoulder. In one fluid motion, she turned, hooked his arm, and executed another precise wrist lock. He yelped, dropping to the ground, clutching his wrist in shock. The hallway fell silent. Phones that had been recording now captured something no one expected, the shy, quiet girl dismantling the school bullies with calm, practiced precision. Lena didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply let go of the boys, her chest rising and falling with adrenaline, and stood tall. Her voice, quiet but steady, cut through the silence. "Don't ever touch me again." The bullies staggered back, humiliated and nursing their wrists. Their bravado melted under the stares of dozens of classmates who had just witnessed something unforgettable. For the first time, Lena wasn't invisible. For the first time, everyone saw her. And right here, before I continue Lena's journey, I want to pause and speak to you. If you believe in stories like this, stories where ordinary people discover their strength in extraordinary ways, then I invite you to join our growing community. Subscribe to SoulTouch Stories. Every week, I share powerful narratives that don't just entertain but reach into your soul and remind you of the courage inside us all. But Lena's fight wasn't over. In the days that followed, the bullies spread rumors, trying to claw back their pride. "She's dangerous," they whispered. "She broke Mason's wrist." Some admired her. Others avoided her. Teachers, too, looked at her differently, concern mixed with curiosity. And Lena, though stronger than she had ever felt, wrestled with new fears. Late at night, she sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her reflection in the mirror. "Is this really me?" she whispered. She had always wanted to disappear, and now, ironically, she couldn't. Everyone knew her name. Everyone knew what she had done. But the true test of her courage came weeks later. One afternoon, Lena was walking past the gym when she heard the sound of laughter, the cruel, mocking kind she knew all too well. She peeked inside and saw Mason and his crew cornering a younger boy, a freshman with a nervous stutter. They had his backpack, tossing it back and forth while he jumped helplessly to grab it. His face was red with embarrassment, his eyes pleading silently for help. Lena froze. Her heart raced. The old Lena would have walked away. It wasn't her problem. She hated attention. But then she remembered how it had felt, the terror when Mason grabbed her collar, the humiliation of being laughed at. And she thought of her father's words again. She stepped into the gym. The bullies noticed her instantly. Their laughter faltered. Mason's eyes narrowed, but Lena saw the flicker of hesitation. He remembered her grip. He remembered the pain. "Give it back," Lena said firmly, her voice steady. The younger boy looked at her with wide, hopeful eyes. For a moment, no one moved. Then Mason tossed the backpack aside with a scowl. "Whatever," he muttered, brushing past her. His friends followed, their swagger broken. The boy scrambled to pick up his bag, clutching it to his chest. Thank you," he stammered. Lena smiled gently, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Don't thank me. Just, don't be afraid to stand up for yourself." That moment changed everything. Word spread, not of a fight, but of Lena standing up for someone else. Slowly, the whispers in the hallway shifted. Students who once looked at her with fear now looked with respect. A few even approached her, asking if she could teach them self-defense moves. And so Lena, the once invisible girl, began leading small groups in the gym after school. She showed them the same simple techniques her father had taught her, but more importantly, she showed them that strength wasn't about hurting others, it was about protecting yourself, about walking tall even when the world tried to push you down. The bullies, too, changed in subtle ways. Mason avoided her, yes, but there were moments Lena caught him watching from afar, his pride broken, but perhaps his perspective shifting. Some said he stopped picking on the younger kids altogether. Lena had transformed. Not into someone loud or flashy, but into someone unshakably strong. And in a world where so many shy souls are overlooked or underestimated, she became a quiet reminder that silence does not mean weakness. And before I bring this story to its close, I want to say this. If Lena's journey moved you, if you've ever felt like the underdog who had to find their own strength, I'd love for you to like this video, leave a comment sharing your own story, and subscribe to SoulTouch Stories. Together, we can keep spreading narratives that empower and inspire. Years later, Lena would look back at that day in the hallway, the day Mason grabbed her collar, as the turning point of her life. It wasn't about breaking wrists. It was about breaking free. Free from the chains of fear, free from the shadows of silence, free from the lie that being quiet meant being weak. Her story is a lasting reminder. True power doesn't come from fists or fear, it comes from the courage to stand tall when someone tries to tear you down. And maybe, just maybe, the next time someone tries to grab your collar, literally or metaphorically, you'll remember Lena's story. And you'll discover that deep within you too lies a strength no bully can ever break.